Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. I am somewhere deep in Japan at the moment, so Richard and I have a little bit of a fun episode coming up here. We're going to talk about our favorites and our worsts, but I'm going to leave that to Mr. Kerr to explain here in just a second because it was his idea. We hope that by the time this episode comes out, that the pickleball injury will be far behind him in the rearview mirror and that he will be more mobile. We're also hoping that there's video of him limping through an airport. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you today?
Pretty good, man. Working on limp. Actually walked to dinner. There's a restaurant up at the front of our neighborhood. So
Wow.
been swimming the last week or so to keep the cardio
Nice.
up, and then went for a walk, and that was a terrible idea. So we'll see how it goes here in New York City in 2 days.
I cannot imagine what that injury is going to be like. Yeah, like stairs and all that fun stuff and subways. Yeah, should be fun.
That's what they make ibuprofen for.
That's true. That's true. By the way, I read that even ibuprofen is regulated for entry into Japan. I was not expecting quite that level of insanity.
I think there's a lot of tall tales out there. As somebody who went through Japanese immigration once a month for 3 years, probably, I never got stopped for the bottles of ibuprofen and Pepto-Bismol in my bag. I don't think
Did you declare the ibuprofen when you went through?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Nope.
I will plan to declare my prescriptions, but, whatever. I mean, like, there's a long list of prescriptions that are not allowed, but they all seem to be, pretty, the stuff that you'd expect, stuff that has amphetamines and things like that in it, cannabis, all that stuff I sort of expect.
Fentanyl, cocaine,
Yep.
meth.
Yeah, cocaine is against the rules. Hard to believe. Let's do a little housekeeping before we dive in. If you want to text the show or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. If you're watching on YouTube, well, first off, I've switched out and I've got my green Animal Kingdom mug. If you're not watching, because then you can't see, you got my great smoothie mug here that I picked up at Animal Kingdom on my last trip. Richard has his all peopled out mug, which I would agree, you are all peopled out.
It's Friday, man. I'm all peopled out.
Yeah, it's Friday somewhere. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a subscribe button for our channel. Love it if you could hit that for us and give this episode a like, thumbs up. Those are two awesome things that you can do to help us grow the show. Same thing on audio. If you can follow the show in whatever podcast platform you're listening to and give us a like on whatever episode you listen to, 5-star reviews are super awesome, helpful. Mr. Kerr, one small bit of housekeeping before we get into what I think was a brilliant idea of yours for this week's episode. But a bit of housekeeping brought to us today by Auburn Berry, who handles social media for us. And she wanted to make sure that I pointed something
really tall
out to
person. Yeah.
Really tall. Yes.
Really
yes. Tall. Yeah. Short Girl Social, I think, is her handle. Anyway, Tiny Traveler. Anyway, she pointed out. She pointed out.
Called Short Girl Travel from now on.
She pointed out an excellent tie-in. For those of you that are not a member of the Slack community, you want to join and spend a few bucks helping us support the show on a weekly basis. We have weekly happy hours. We've got meetups coming up. We've got a bunch of different Slack channels where you can ask questions and have them answered. Different major airline chains. We've got a channel for safari planning, even a Built for Life channel. But one of our Slack members, Mr. Kerr, has disproven your theory. Can you believe that?
I can. I talk a lot of stuff sometimes, but I'm not sure which theory particularly you're talking about.
If this were a Broadway show, or if this were like a broadcast television, this is where we would have like a swoosh noise, and then we would rewind, and Jeremiah would put in your prediction that nobody we ever know and only the bots would win the Wyndham Ultimate Hotel Pass.
No means are any of you actually going to get this. I ignore it because you're not going to get one, but you're not going to get one. So good luck to everybody out there. You're not going to get it. It's just not, for all intents and purposes, a realistic thing to look at, and you're not going to get one. So, somebody got 30 days out of Days Inn. That's awesome.
Matthew Perchik, who is a Slack community member, posted online on Facebook on the Travel on Points Facebook group that he was one of the winners of the Wyndham Ultimate Hotel Pass. So there you have it, Mr. Kerr, a human being. Assuming we think Matthew is human, did win the Wyndham Hotel Pass.
I genuinely, in all seriousness, want the full recap of how he uses this and also what the job is so that he can use it. Because, I mean, hey, if you can go down to the Wyndham Bonnet Creek for a month, like, that's a pretty sweet gig. Like,
yeah, if you go down there for a week for $600, that'd be a sweet gig. So maybe Matthew will be the first Slack community member to come on and have a little chit chat with us here.
Cool.
All right, so Mr. Kerr, I'm going to get out of the way for the moment, and I'm going to have you. I would love for you to explain to the audience the concept that you came up with for this week's episode because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for rapid fire questions, specifically when they're interesting rapid fire questions, not like what's your favorite food, which for Ed is anything from Costco. Pumpkin
Donuts,
pie,
don't
I think,
forget
is the
donuts,
answer, which is disgusting.
Oh, so
But
good.
I thought some of our best episodes from watching and listening tend to be our stories on top of when we do rapid fire news stuff. So we do have one news article, and I actually talked about this on the day job yesterday in regards to Delta's second quarter financial results. But first, I want to hit Ed with some rapid fire questions about his travels around the world, and I want to hear the stories to see, number one, if I've heard these before, and number two, how good of a story they are. So here we go, Ed. You ready? We have to here's the rule. Here are the ground rules that we have. We have to keep our answers to less than 45 seconds. I have my Apple Watch here going
Okay. All right.
for each one, and there are a few surprise questions that I did not prepare you for, which is all the fun of rapid fire. So here you go. Ready? Number one.
Well, and for what it's worth, I will close with the final two bennies with my own special added category.
Is it like a soapbox? Did I just get to listen and sit back in my all peopled out mug and drink tea, or do I have to participate?
Go with it. Let's go with it.
Question number one on today's rapid fire episode here on Miles to Go podcast.
Wait, well, sorry, one more time out too.
How many timeouts do we get?
I know, but this is
What is this, basketball?
But this is worth it. Yeah, right. Yeah, the last 2 minutes of the game. I just want to make sure that I'm sure he'll get there before I do. But that one part, Jeremiah, where Richard says, "I'm a sucker," just cut everything after that, and we just need that piece for something. So anyway, go ahead.
I have not fallen prey to a scam yet. Actually, I got not always a sucker. Okay. The questions that you do not know is coming is where we're going to start here, rapid fire first.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, let's start. Yeah.
Tell me your worst airplane meal of recollection.
Worst airplane meal of recollection was a flight to Rome with the kids. Charlie was probably 2 or 3 years old. They didn't load any of the kids' meals, so no chicken fingers, any of that stuff. So they didn't get their first meal, and they had to eat the adult meals, which were unbelievably horrible. This is on United, by the way. Remember the old, not old, they're still out there, the 772s with the rear-facing business class seats. So no kids' meals, so they were starving. The adult meals were horrid. And then the kids' meals for the second meal for landing, the eggs were literally green, and nobody could eat them.
United to Rome. Getting that Rome cuisine started off right.
You like that? I had no idea that question was coming and still had a perfect United catering experience. Is this... But by the way, is this reminiscent of the moldy chicken story that we talked about on the Slack Happy Hour last night?
Yeah, ladies and gents, if you haven't seen the pictures of the moldy chicken that literally turned the Delta flight around over the Atlantic a few weeks ago, please go check out those pictures. Woof.
Fuzzy chicken.
Again, we talked about Happy Hour last night. I don't understand how you get 24 passengers in before you realize you're handing people a pile of fuzzy mold.
Yeah. Well, so here's my question. Are you answering the surprise questions too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, no, not these myself, but
okay.
When it's your turn, you can choose to ask it. All right, let's go next one. Your favorite domestic flight. This is not a product. This is not a plane. This is a specific flight that you remember taking domestically where you go, that was my favorite flight.
This one's easy. Yeah, it would be the very first public charter of a 787 on Star Megadoo, 3, 4, whatever it was, where we were the first group to charter a 787. We flew from Houston to Seattle to go visit the good folks at Boeing.
Is this when Gary Leff had to go buy pizzas in the terminal because they didn't have any food for anybody?
That was the American Airlines charter 757.
Oh, that was American. I'm sure.
Where the funny part, the other funny part about the one, he went and bought food. We also, because we drank the plane dry. And
no.
Yeah, I know.
What's the Miles people drinking dry? I don't believe that.
As other American flights were pulling into Seattle during this maintenance delay, they were pulling the booze off of the other planes and bringing it to ours, which was a really bad idea. And I'll tell you after we stopped recording, but there was, I still don't know how we did this. There was a video involving something that an American Airlines flight attendant was doing on the flight that was completely innocuous, and some jackass on the Megadoo who was drunk did something completely inappropriate. And there had to be 30 videos of this thing. And the head of the American Airlines Advantage program at that point gets this horrific look on her face because she's been on the job for all of, wait for it, 24 hours.
That's why she agreed to go on this
and she's like,
show in the first place.
She's like, oh my gosh, I am going to get fired. And we somehow got 30 people to not put the video online so that
there's no chance that would happen today. It would be out there so fast.
None.
Instantly.
And it was so bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never hung out with a group of, I would call it 2008 to 2014 Points and Miles people, A lot of people, I hope, are going to weekly meetings here 2024 for the shenanigans that were pulled man, we all have some stories about those times.
There are a lot of people from that time period that are on their second livers. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Or maybe not. All right, favorite international flight. Again, not a product, not a plane, a specific flight that you took.
This is another easy one, and oddly enough, it involves a Megadoo. It involves that American Megadoo. I got 45 seconds, damn. Okay. We were in Seattle again, and there was a trivia question, a bunch of trivia questions with everybody on the Megadoo, and so Jal was giving away a prize, and you like start out with, you stood on one side of the room or the other based on what your answers were, and then when they got down to the final, like 5 or 6 people, we had pads, and they would tell us the name of an airport. We had to tell them where it was. And I'll never forget Bradley International Airport, because that was what won me. I was surprised. Nobody else knew what Bradley was. And I didn't know what the next question was. Like, I didn't know about John Lennon Airport at that point, or at least the name tied to it. And so Bradley Airport, knowing where Bradley was, won me inaugural business class seat on Japan Airlines from Boston to Tokyo. This is back in 2012-ish. My first time going to Asia. Did it in business class on a not lie flat slanty seat.
I was about to say, that was the 787 recliners that Japan Airlines launched with. Yeah, oof.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
cool, but woof.
Well, it wasn't necessarily recliners. It was that slanted, like the 165 degree part or whatever.
If you're watching on video, your head starts up here, and like 30 minutes later, you're down here.
And you shuffle back up.
You keep sliding down, you shuffle back up, and then you sleep for an hour, and you wake up and you realize you're down on the footwell sleeping. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it was an awesome meal. It was an awesome flight. Good meal, the whole bit. I'd never flown JAL, obviously, and I'd never been to Tokyo. That was my first of a lot of things that you think are incredibly awesome. My first time doing Tsukiji, the old fish market, first time Japanese baseball. That was a really awesome flight. And
ladies and gentlemen, just another shout out for Japanese baseball. We've talked about it, I think, several times here over the years. If you hate sports and if you hate baseball, I don't care. If you go to Japan, go to a Japanese baseball game. The end. I have not let down a single person with that advice in 11 years now, so just do it.
How disappointed are you in me that I'm 72 hours from boarding a flight for Japan and have done no research on taking my kids to a baseball game?
You've just met expectations. But the great thing about it is you just have to go to any Japanese 7-Eleven, switch it over to English in the kiosk, buy the tickets, and then you go to the game. There you go. There's your planning. Done.
So yeah,
use Google Maps to figure out how to take the subway there, and that's it.
Backpack cheerleader beer for the win.
That's so good. They carry the kegs on their back, and it's like 500 yen. Now is like $3. So like, yeah, hell, great.
It's so good that there are a handful of Japanese women on disability who have carried kegs around on their back at baseball games who can no longer walk.
I'm not following that story, but okay. All right, on to the next question. Your favorite domestic
all those cheerleader women, they're like 5 foot tall, and they're carrying what has to be 100 pounds of beer on their back. I mean, that can't that.
Dude,
can't
the
be
Japanese are not human. They are Japanese. They have superhuman powers that I don't understand. That's why they're all 95 years old and still doing the Tai Chi in the parks, and Americans look ridiculous. All right, favorite domestic hotel, and this is a product. This is a property. This is not a stay, but your favorite domestic hotel here in the United States of America.
All right, so this is where things are going to take a little bit of a left-hand turn, Mr. Kerr. It's a multiple choice answer.
Oh boy, here we go. Okay, let's say the 50 U.S. states, not Puerto Rico.
No. I want to go further. You know how I love my family, so I solicited them answers, and so here are the family choices. For me, it's Mount Washington, which is an unbelievable hotel at the base of Mount Washington, a historic hotel where the IMF was formed back in like the 40s, in between World War I and World War II.
Is it like Vermont or somewhere?
New Hampshire. There are fireplaces you can walk into. That's how big they are. Historic hotel, beautiful hotel. There's a diesel cog railway that goes up the mountain behind the hotel. Stunning hotel. It's actually an Omni hotel now.
It is an Omni. Yep.
Yeah, so you can score it via daily getaways, or it has been scoreable on daily getaways in the past. So that's my favorite hotel. My wife brought up a hotel that my daughter also picked as her favorite domestic U.S. hotel. That was the Hyatt Regency Tamaya, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The rooms themselves aren't anything like super special, but there's a horse rehabilitation farm on site, so you get to see what they're doing to help these horses that have been injured and how they're rehabbing them back to health. My daughter got to bake bread from scratch in the ovens that are native to the area. Made dream catchers, a whole bit. So that was another great one, a great reward redemption. And then my son's choice was the Lodge at Kikui'ula, which was at unbelievable 3-bedroom plus casita, a $5 million house that we had in Kauai last year for Hawaii.
Solid answers. We're really sucking at this 45-second thing, but we're gonna power through. Favorite international hotel. International, Ed, means a hotel outside of the U.S. and territory. So I guess we're not covering the U.S. territories today. We'll have to make that a third category in next week's trivia episode. Favorite hotel in U.S. territories.
Favorite international hotels, and I'll go through these quick.
No, hotel. Palace. One hotel. Favorite hotel.
No, the kids. We gotta get the kid answer. Sorry, breaking rules. Astor Palace in Vuliamene, which is about 45 minutes south of Athens. I don't think this is a Marriott property anymore. There's a Westin beside it on the water, which I think that's the Aegean Sea. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful property, overlooks the water. Massive upgrades, incredible Mediterranean food. Wife picked the Hotel Daniele in Venice. Love that. St. Regis Venice, which is no longer a St. Regis, but an island just south off of Venice. And then my daughter's favorite was the St. Regis in Rome.
St. Regis Rome. I have been to none of your family's favorite international properties.
You haven't been to Hotel Daniele or St. Regis Rome?
Nope. I went to Rome on a cruise, and I went another time, and we stayed in like a Expedia place that I found for super cheap, and then I have not been to Venice.
You haven't been to Venice?
Nope. Never had the opportunity.
I love Venice. I know we're supposed to be at 45 seconds. Love Venice. And are you going to answer any of these, or am I just are you just picking on me today?
No, it's your turn. It's my turn to ask you, and then now it's going to be the other way around for these.
Okay.
All right. Let me scroll back here.
You got worst flight and worst hotel.
Yeah. Worst flight ever. This is not a product. This is a specific flight.
Yep. It's a tie. There was a diversion from Puerto Rico to Miami where we ran out of diapers, and I had to pay somebody $20 for a diaper that was about 4 sizes too big for our daughter because we were locked in a terminal with no stores open for like 3 hours in the middle of the night.
They wouldn't do it for like 5. Did they actually bargain with you and price gouged you?
They wouldn't give me diapers because they thought they were going to run out too. So I had to make a bold move.
Fair enough.
And then I think I've told the story. I think I've told the story on the podcast about the flight from Chicago to Memphis on the ERJ where I was in the lavatory standing up going to the bathroom and we had so much turbulence I hit the ceiling and blacked out.
And you woke up yourself, or the flight attendants eventually got you?
No, I woke up myself, hit the ceiling again a second time, and when I opened the lavatory door, because I'm like, well, now I got to get back to my seat in a hurry because this is really bad, and the beverage cart was leaning over into somebody's seat. All the overhead bins were opened up. There was crap everywhere, and I just like vaulted over the beverage cart and put my seatbelt on and did not move again for the rest of the flight.
I am hoping, fingers crossed, to avoid situations like that going forward.
We've said it a number of times on the show. There's no reason not to wear your seatbelt on a plane.
Yeah, really not. But I tell you, man, every time that seatbelt goes off, I hear click, click, click. I'm like, you guys are idiots. Put your seatbelt on. It literally doesn't affect you at all.
Because it's so uncomfortable, right? Yeah.
All right, let's flip tables. And it's your turn to hit me.
Oh, I would love to hit you. But that's for another day. All right, favorite domestic flight, Mr. Kerr.
Okay, so I did absolutely no pre-thought or research on this so that I could give actual, like, off-the-cuff answers. So think about this one. My favorite flight is when I knew that I was going to make it as a dad. We flew from Phoenix to BWI on Southwest. Mary was like 0. Thomas was 1.5. When Thomas got very tired when he was a little guy, he would get pukey. So he was dry heaving in the terminal. We get on the flight and we take off. We got his car seat that he's sitting in. It's me and Thomas in one aisle. It's Mary and Emily behind me because of Southwest open seating. And Thomas pukes everywhere and fills up himself and his entire car seat with puke. Turbulence was really bad at the time, so all a flight attendant could get to me so she could get back to her seat was cocktail napkins. So I'm trying to clean up an entire car seat with Thomas obviously not well, full of puke, and me looking back at Emily who's holding Mary, and I'm like, this sucks, but we got through it. I remember driving home. Poor Thomas had to put his car seat in the car for the drive home from VWI. He was sitting in a puke-smelling, wet car seat. We made it through, and everybody's like, that's the worst flight ever. I'm like, no, we got home, and Thomas was fine, and I was like, I'm going to make it. If we went through that, we're going to be okay.
That was back when you were the points jock.
That was the points job. It was probably circa 2017, Phoenix to BWI, puke-filled car seat on Southwest.
That's disgusting. Never had puke, but we have had massive diarrhea on planes, but that'll be a story for another day.
I don't think Michelle wants you telling that story about her.
All right. I'm really interested to hear your favorite international flight because I have a feeling it'll be more exciting than mine.
My favorite international flight is the first time that I flew ANA first class from Chicago to Tokyo Narita. And this was when they just came out with the cubes. And there's something about Japanese. For the 5,000th time on this podcast, Japanese culture is incredibly special to me from our time over there. The service, the attention to detail, there's no rushing. They genuinely seem to care about how you are doing. They care about their performance, everything about it, the food, the drinks, the sake, the seat. I have one of my favorite pictures of me on a plane, and I don't have very many favorite pictures that I'm in it, but is me holding this champagne and this, because just the culmination of the time of, wow, you can really do this stuff on points and miles. And that 13 hours, I didn't sleep a wink. It was just fantastic. And if you have not flown ANA first class, it is just the best.
That's awesome. I love that you didn't sleep. I love my sleep, but you didn't want to miss a minute.
I did the same thing on Emirates first class from Dulles to Dubai. 14-hour flight. I slept like an hour because there was just too much to try and do in the onboard bar, and it was, man, I don't want to waste the experience by sleeping.
Well, you probably know this. I've never flown ANA, but I've flown JAL a handful of times, and you're absolutely right about the culture on those planes. They just get it. They do. All right. Are you ready for the next one, or do you need some more tea?
I'm good.
All right. Favorite domestic hotel? I don't think I know your answer to this one.
It's a new one. We talked about it very recently. The Park Hyatt Chicago. The experience that they put together for me and my kids on our trip to Wrigley Field. Won't go too much into detail here. I'm just going to say the attention to detail again from the staff who just took care of everything for that one night stay. It's just going to stick with me for a long time. It's going to be a fantastic core memory of me and my kids. And the way that they handled it from check-in to check-out for such a short trip was amazing. So shout out to the people at Park Hyatt Chicago.
I've had an enjoyable stay there as well, so I can understand why that's your top. I'm curious if Amman Yara is going to be the favorite international hotel.
It's a fantastic and wonderful place. Shout out to Christian Pulisic, the United States men's soccer team captain, who went to Amman Yara this week. If you're following him on Instagram, he posted his stories with his girlfriend, and I was like, I know where that is. But no.
And he's spending a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think he cares. He wasn't asking for prices. That was just me.
You don't think so?
No, he's a multi-gajillionaire. No, my favorite international hotel is the Hyatt Regency Da Nang, Vietnam. It is much more on par with an Andaz or a Park Hyatt. Don't know how they get away with the Hyatt Regency. Right on the beach. Amazing Vietnamese service, amazing value, just a really incredible country, fantastic history in Da Nang, both on the right and wrong side of history, depending on where you are, because that's where the Marines landed in the 60s for the first time to enter that conflict. But the French Village, it's just an amazing place. If you have a chance to go to Hyatt Regency Da Nang, and I've said that for many years, and everybody who has gone has come back and sent me a message and said, "You're right, man, that place is amazing. It's my favorite international hotel."
Nice. I have not been, but that's a really great description of it. All right, worst flight ever.
Domestic or international, or just worst flight ever?
I think we did. I don't think we separated them, so just worst flight ever.
This was an Air China A330 from Beijing to Rome in economy. This was very early in the days
Beijing to Rome. What an interesting route.
So we were living in Japan, our first year in Japan, and we caught an amazing deal on a Royal Caribbean cruise out of Rome around the Mediterranean. Didn't have any kids, so I thought, wow, this is really awesome. And, relatively early in the points and miles days, but was still, pretty solid and expert at the time. And I put together a pretty cool itinerary using United Miles, where they allow double open jaws and a stopover, and you could get like 8 segments on a single award ticket. So we flew Tokyo to Beijing, Beijing to Rome, open jawed it to Paris, and Paris back through a few places to Tokyo. Do that flight. We got to Beijing. The short hop from Tokyo to Beijing was no problem. It was ANA because of the Star Alliance ticket, Air China Star Alliance. But dude, got to our original flight, Beijing to Rome. There was no business space, so it was just going to be an economy flight. It was just inland. So I was like, whatever. 4 hours delayed. We board. Then we get off the plane for a maintenance issue. 2 hours later, we get on the plane. As soon as we push back, everybody else's TV starts up with the safety video. Mine does not. And I was like, oh boy. So after takeoff, I was like, and this was like really before the time of like downloading stuff. Kind of downloading stuff on iPads and phones and whatever. But flight attendant came by and I was like, hey, my TV doesn't work. She was like, oh yeah, it's out. And she said,
it's out.
It's out. Yeah, Chinese service not on par with Japanese service. It's just a fact of life. She came back 5 minutes later with a single People magazine that was in English, was the only reading material they had. And she said, here you go. And for the next, I think that was like a 10-hour flight because you're going.
I was going to say it's got to be like an 8 or a 10-hour flight.
I think it's like a 10-hour flight. I sat there. Emily and I would like have one headphone in each, looking at her screen, and the in-flight entertainment on Air China, old A330, was nothing. There was so much grease on the screen and the window from people putting their heads in their hands that you could literally scrape off the grease with like your napkin. Food was absolutely abysmal, and you just always see interesting things when you travel in these kinds of places. And it was a very, very, very long 10 hours after a 6-hour delay after a false board and so that was definitely the worst flight that I still think about all the time.
And that was a daytime flight?
No, it was a nighttime flight.
It was
really weird timing, man. We like left at night and we got there at night. So it was a very, very long day.
Yeah, no, I was trying to work that timing out of like when that actually happens and how you fly, because you're definitely going the wrong way.
I went the wrong way. We got to Rome, and Emily, who could really care. She doesn't even know what plane we're flying until we like literally get to the boarding gate. She was like, "Hey, let's not do that again." I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, I don't think
I don't know what that airline was.
I don't think
Air
Air China economy's for me again." Yeah.
You know, a brief segue. Like, do you think you'll go back to China again?
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. That's such a massive country with so many cool looking things.
Oh, I don't disagree with you, but I mean, just from a like geopolitical standpoint, I'm not sure I would go right now.
Yeah, man. I think they're not going to just attack a random American because you're American. They don't want to deal with that fallout. Like, you got to be really doing something dumb, which I think Americans are absolutely capable of doing to go over and offend them from a culture. Like, do stuff that's absolutely offensive and not respectful. But if you go over there as a respectful tourist, like, I don't think you have a problem. I think it's a tough place to travel. I'll be honest. Been to Beijing a few times, and out of the city to the Great Wall and around that area. I don't recommend it as your first entry into Asia. If you really want to hit the culture shock, it's certainly a way to do it. Other people who listen are up for an adventure, and look, you're going to get an adventure in China. Can be a very tough place to travel, but I just think there's so much amazing stuff there, and I barely scratched the surface that I definitely want to go back one day and check it all out.
Yeah, I haven't done the Great Wall. Personally, I think, unless the political climate changes, I just feel like there are enough other places in the world I haven't been yet that I don't really want that.
It's a superpower, man. Like, you can't ignore. I think the only superpower we can ignore is Russia right now, from a safety standpoint. But
definitely don't think I'm going to Russia in my lifetime. Yes, that's for sure.
You don't think in your lifetime you're going to go to Russia?
Do you know how old I am? You've been here before, right?
I don't like, so for a very long time, I tried a lot of different ways to go visit North Korea. Like, my rule for traveling somewhere is if I know who is in charge and everybody in that country knows who's in charge, then you're good. It's when you go to places and nobody knows who's in charge, that's where things tend to go south. So everybody is fully aware of who's in charge in North Korea. And if you follow the rules, nothing bad happens to Americans that go there. It is always the people who steal the banner, bring in something they shouldn't have brought, like trying to hand out religious material. Like, you're just going to get in trouble. So don't do that stuff. Unfortunately, because of my job in the Navy, I was never allowed to go for obvious reasons. I don't know if I ever will be, but I don't like that there are places in this world that I cannot go. Like, I find that as just a human, incredibly frustrating for the countries that make it almost impossible to get in as a tourist visa. Like, it's just something that doesn't sit well with me, and I view it as a challenge because, like, this is a huge planet, and we only get one go around on it as far as any of us are concerned. And if there are places where it says you can't go here, then I take that as a challenge, and I will try and go there one day. Now, I'm not going to do ridiculously dumb things to make that happen like some people do for the glamour of Instagram. But if there is a legitimate way that I can go to these places one day, I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm going to live vicariously through you on North Korea. You're on your own.
But you might give me to China. It is the safest place in the world, arguably, if you follow the rules. If you do not follow the rules, it is the most dangerous place in the world.
Right, but you do understand the rules are written in pencil.
Dude, they are not just going to take a random American hostage who does nothing wrong. If you go up and
Other than the ones they've already done?
But that's because they've done something wrong every time. With Otto Warmbier, he stole the banner. Other people bring in religious materials. Like, other people, you see this big statue, you take a bow. It doesn't have to mean anything to you, but you just don't, offend them, and you're okay.
I never thought that this is where we'd end up on this episode.
I think it's because I live a place in the country where most people don't travel, and they have these outlandish things that they just say when I'm sitting at the park or at the playground or at the pool with all the adults, and they go, "It's such a dangerous place, I would never go." And I'm like, you literally have never been out of the state of Georgia, but this is the way of, that irritates the absolute bejeebus out of me when people do that stuff.
I hear you. And look, I mean, I'm sure if there was a way to have a very, very high degree of confidence that we were going to be safe going in North Korea. I'm intellectually curious. There's just a lot of other places that I could go right now where I don't have to explain to my wife that I'm going to be in jail for the next 10 or 20 years.
They could be in jail.
All right, worst hotel ever. I don't think I know what this one's going to be.
So this is a story Mrs. Kerr's probably not going to be happy about me telling, but it kind of indirectly involves her. Let's just say that a young 20...
She doesn't listen to the podcast.
She might. From time to time now, the kids do like to listen if it's going to be a podcast about, or I'm talking about one of our trips. So I never actually do know if the podcast is going to come up. Let's just say hypothetically that a young 22-year-old brand new Navy officer is getting married in 2009. Let's just say that was the case. And let's just say that there were 12 to 15 other brand new Navy officers in their slick uniforms who'd been officers, for all 4 or 5 months that thought they were the coolest stuff in the world, who knew that their 22-year-old buddy was going to get married, and they wanted to plan a bachelor parties tend to happen before a gentleman gets married. And let's just say, for the sake
no
of
explicit lyrics on the podcast, just saying.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the 2009 Exotic Dancing National Championships are occurring in Atlanta, and there's we're just hypothetically saying, what if this had occurred? And let's just say that if these 15, 12 brand new Navy officers had the best time of their lives, all on the up and up, of course, nobody violated any rules or trust or anything, but just that, hey, nobody needed to drive. And the only place that was in walking distance of this fine Atlanta establishment was a Knight's Inn. And this Knight's Inn, which if you don't know what a Knight's Inn is, go Google it right now, like a Knight, not night, but a Knight's Inn, that had been remodeled last in 1968, and it was $29 for the night. You can just kind of picture the establishment that I'm talking about, and that was absolutely the worst hotel lodging that I've ever stayed in for all of the 5 hours that we needed to stay there before we needed to get out. This is all hypothetical, of course, but let's just say if that had occurred, that would be my worst hotel ever.
Hypothetically, was there more penicillin needed for the nighttime activities or for the stay at the Knight's Inn? Just curious.
Nobody violated any trust or any ethics or any rules.
I'm not saying that, but I mean, how? Like maybe somebody picked something up at the Knight's Inn.
There could have been a lot of staph infections just from like touching anything in that motel room. Like it was, oh boy, that was the worst. Hypothetically speaking. Hypothetically.
All right. Well, we're going to close with, well, maybe not close because you may have more surprises, but I have a surprise topic that I wanted to add. It's called the Why Not Both category. As you know, my favorite memes. The Why Not Both meme is one of my favorites. And I have a hotel that folds into the best and worst hotel ever category.
I'm intrigued.
Yes. I don't know if you even heard this story, and I'll try to keep it short, but it probably won't be 45 seconds. I learned about this hotel called the Wickaninnish Inn, which is located in Tofino, British Columbia. And I had learned about this hotel back in the 90s. This hotel is in a rainforest, gets rain almost every day, stunningly beautiful property, and very high demand. And at the time, this was called late 90s. You needed to book essentially a year in advance if you wanted to go to the Wickaninnish Inn. Well, the job I was working at, we were going to try and do a conference in Vancouver. And so I was going up there to do a fam trip for a bunch of hotels. And it just so happened that at that point, the Wickaninnish Inn was adding a second building to their property. And so they weren't a year out on reservations. They were, wait for it, only 6 months out on reservations. So I'm like, all right, well, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to book it. The new hotel tower opens, not tower, sorry, these are all like individual rooms. There's maybe like 30 or 40 rooms. It opens, a month or two before we're supposed to go. Like, this is great. It's enough time for them to work the kinks out, the whole bit. Well, I mean, as you well know, like back in the 90s, there wasn't a lot of internet. And so made the hotel reservations. You land in Victoria, you have to drive north, you take a ferry boat across to Vancouver Island, and then you drive 3 hours to get to Tofino, British Columbia. So it's a commitment. And rainforests, hot springs, the whole bit. Each room is its own individual room, raincoats, movies in the room for when it rains, all that, umbrellas, so you can, boots, the whole bit, so you can go out during the rainstorms. The main restaurant for the hotel, it was like on a rock, like a jetty made of rocks, and the waves would break up against the windows at high tide while you're eating in this like stunningly beautiful restaurant. And so like we're super, super pumped to get there. And I don't do any follow-ups on the lead up to the trip because, I mean, back then you really couldn't do follow-ups. But as it turned out, the grand opening that was scheduled for 2 months before we got there never happened. And so they were opening the day we arrived. And
that's
I think if I told you, hey, do you want to be at the first day of any brand new hotel? Your answer would be
not.
Absolutely not. So we get there, and the first thing we see of the building is like, number of construction vehicles. And they're walking the glass panels up to the front of the hotel to put the doors on the front. And so we go in to the main building, we get checked in, we come back over to this new building where we're going to be staying. And that's when I realized they're walking in the door to our hotel room. We don't have a door yet. And they're installing the door. And I'm like, wow, this is not going to be good. I can't even list all the things that went wrong from there, but some of the highlights were This was a romantic getaway for just my wife and I, and so
No
each
door
room,
required.
right? Each room has like a view of the beach and the water and all that, but secluded. So the trees are cut in such a way that really nobody can see into your room. There's this like big, massive bathtub inside the room up against a glass panel that looks out onto our little sliver of ocean. And there are two guys outside the window trimming trees all day long, and there are no curtains. And so my wife can't get changed, and she can't take a bath or a shower. And the windows weren't, all the window panels weren't in yet. So after they got done trimming all the trees, what do you think they did?
Took a lunch break? I don't know.
Yeah, well, they did take
Put the windows
short. They laid fresh manure, fertilizer over the entire grounds, and it was very warm.
A
and very
rainforest
humid.
needs fertilizer? I didn't know that.
Look, so the rest of the day, the room smelled very effervescent. we went to the front desk, and there was a line of, 25 people, all there to complain because everybody was having all the same issues. Like this hotel was clearly not ready, and they were trying to make this work, and it was an utter disaster. In a weird twist of fate, one of the single best customer service experiences I've ever had at a hotel. We had an incredible dinner there. It was unbelievable. We sleep the night. There's obviously no romance because it just smells like cow manure the entire night. The door to our room won't close. The windows aren't in yet. And we get up the next morning. We had paid for 3 nights. And we're like, we just got to go. And so I'd called ahead we're staying at the Fairmont Victoria, which is another stunning, beautiful property. And they were going to let us check in early. And so I go down to the front desk, and now there's like 10 or 12 people stacked up waiting for the rooms manager, who is just getting her teeth kicked in by everyone. And I feel bad for her. And I wait in line for forever. And I get up to my point in line, and she's like, yes. And like, you can see like the look on the face. And I'm like, look, like, I know you're having a rough day. I just don't want to stay for the next 2 nights, and I really don't want to pay for those 2 nights. And she could just see the look on her face was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so relieved. Like, this person's not going to spend the rest of the time kicking my teeth in. So we leave, and I'll close the last part quickly, but the best customer service experience a very memorable customer experience. We get to the Fairmont Victoria. I'm on a FAM trip, familiarization trip, as a travel planner for the company I was working for. And they drop an amenity off in the room. Oh, Mr. Pietrello, we want you to book a meeting. Here's some cool treats, whatever. Very beautiful room, the whole bit. 10 minutes later, another knock on the door. And I open the door up, and there's another amenity. I'm like, what? You guys just dropped an amenity off. She's like, oh, no, this is for you. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I have this beautiful tray inside. She brings in an even more beautiful tray. Massive amenity, which at a Fairmont probably cost them hundreds of dollars. And there's a card in the amenity. It's from the rooms manager at the Wiccan-Inish Inn, who was getting her teeth kicked in. She sent me a note thanking me for essentially not being an and inviting me to come back for free sometime. I don't even know if I ever even told her where we were going. In the midst of the worst day she'd ever had in her professional career, she called another hotel and had an amenity dropped off in my room to apologize and thank me for not being an
How do you spell this place? The Wiccan?
Wiccan-Inish Inn. Wiccan-Innish?
Wiccan-Inish Inn. You learn something every single day. I had no idea you could even drive 3 hours across.
Well, it's because it's all very twisty roads. It's a very twisty road, and they invited me to come back for free. I've never been back, and I someday really want to go stay at this property because you can take a helicopter to Hot Springs.
This is a Mr. and Miss Smith property now, man.
Are you kidding me?
Nope, it is. It is a Mr. and Miss Smith property.
Oh, there's a full circle of life moment for you.
Yeah, there it is.
No, it's
cool place. Everybody should go check this place out.
Oh, unbelievable. I can't, I have to take my wife back here someday. I have to. It's stunningly beautiful, and I wish we could have completed the stay we want to complete because everything I'd ever read about this property was just unbelievable. And it's not obviously a very well-known property. You didn't know about it, and you know about a lot of places.
No. And actually, it's so popular that apparently if you want to book July or August, which I imagine is their peak season, you got to call.
Oh, I mean, like I said, back when we tried to book it, which is obviously 20 plus years ago, you had to book a year in advance when the calendar opened. This, to me, strikes me a little bit like your Amanyar experiences. Like, there are regular guests who go there who have rooms they book, and they just, repeat book every year.
I'm just curious how much it is a night. That's all I want to figure out these days.
It was pretty disgusting when we went. It was a choke moment for me.
Yeah, here it is. Found some dates available. The first available you can book online September, $840 a night that you're looking at.
That's less than I thought.
The Wickeninish Inn in Tofino,
Tofino, British Columbia.
Tofino, 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 British Columbia. Yeah, you are hiking out there, and I would imagine after August the weather sucks. So
the weather sucks during the summer too. It's all rain, but you're going for like the experience. Yeah,
cool spot, man. Would have never heard about it otherwise.
I still don't remember how I heard about the property. I think I read about it in one of the hotel trade magazines back in the 90s. They used to show up in my office all the time at the hotels I worked at. But I would back then, but this was before we had the old internet. I would rip pages out of hotels I wanted to stay at from the trade magazines that they covered, and I would tuck them into a folder. And at that point, that whole trip was hotels I tucked in my folder because I had Fairmont, Vancouver, both of them in there, and I had the Wickeninish Inn.
You know, the real question is, can we book this with Hyatt points now?
But that's gonna be a lot of Hyatt points.
Oh yeah, now I want to find out.
Now that I know this is a Mr. and Mrs. Smith property, man, that's so awesome. I would love to go back there, and I hope that they have doors and windows now.
You do the closing. I'm gonna figure out if we can book this with Hyatt points.
So no other surprise questions for me while you're trying to book with Hyatt points?
I'm invested in this now. I got to figure out the answer.
All right. Well, this was Mr. Kerr's lovely sidecar for my trip to Japan to have an evergreen episode. These were a lot of fun questions. I wish we had more time to dig into some of the stories because I have all sorts of questions on this Air China. I'm now infatuated with this Air China flight. Beijing to Rome, red eye. I need to know more. I need pictures. Like there's lots of stuff I need to understand here. Like what window seat, aisle, like middle, what was going on there?
That was an aisle seat, but Emily was in the window, which is why we saw the grease on the window from whoever slipped on it before we sat down.
So you had an empty middle.
No, it was two. It was an old A330, so it was 242.
242. All right. Okay. Well, anyway, I digress from the closing, as Richard says, but this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed asking the kids what their favorite properties were, which broke Mr. Kerr's rules, and honestly, I don't care. So I appreciate you coming up with this fun idea because it got the kids and my wife thinking about cool places that we've been and memories and adventures that we've created. And I'm super pumped that they remembered as much as they do about some of the favorite places we've been. But I definitely need more information about this Beijing to Rome stuff and your favorite international Hyatt. Hope you find lots of great details on the Wickeninish Inn. This should be the last evergreen episode while I'm going to Japan. So by the time we record again, we're going to test out Mr. Kerr's pickleball leg and see if he's back up and running at full speed. And we may even have some dates for him and I to meet up in August together, maybe podcast in person. Mr. Kerr, safe travels. I hope the leg serves you well in New York City. I look forward to hearing how well that goes. And until we upload again, we've got miles to go.
He's a professional pickleball player.